Class is in session, hitting the books, college basketball edition. Friday, December 20th. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you, ready to break down the card for Friday and Saturday in college basketball. But mostly it'll be Saturday where our focus will be. There's really only two noteworthy games tonight in college basketball, but one of them is a Big East matchup taking place at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Providence hosting St. John's. We've got St. John's 5.5-point road favorites, 142 being the total here in this game. There's no doubt St. John's has been very impressive early in the season. Kaderi Richmond and company have been very, very solid early on. Great offensive team, push the ball in transition. Rick Pitino specialties, press on occasion, and certainly they've had their share of success playing that way. They've won 4 straight, covered 4 straight, including a nice win against Kansas State. See if they can keep that going here against Providence. Now, Providence has had all kinds of ups and downs throughout the course of the season. Of course, early in the year, they were also dealing with the absence of their best player as well. But he recently came back from injury, helped them a little bit, no question. We'll see if he can continue to fuel their efforts here. They're coming off a really poor game against St. Bonaventure, 74-70 at home. We also saw them get blown out by Indiana, lose at Davidson, lose to Oklahoma by 2. So, this hasn't been a great start to the year for Providence. St. John's is definitely the better team, deserving of being road favorites. It's not easy to play, though, at Providence. I kind of lean in this spot with the Friars, plus 5.5, plus 6, as a home underdog. My concern, though, is we have not seen Providence's best stepping up in class. Although there was that one game that they did play where they were very impressive against BYU at 83-64. They've also had some real disappointments and shortcomings in these games against better competition. So it's a lukewarm lean to Providence because I like the number, and I always like being able to get this team in this home court as an underdog. But I do admit it won't be easy. St. John's is playing some great basketball right now under Pitino. Very talented group, you can tell. This is a St. John's team to me that looks even better than they did last year down the stretch. What do you think here, C-Mac? Big East action, St. John's, Providence.
Okay. Yeah, I took Providence here at the plus 6.5 earlier today. I got to take it. I just, I think this is the spot for St. John's. First true road game. That's just difficult. It's crazy to say this far in. And they've looked good on their neutral games and home games. And this offense has been excellent. I think Providence is kind of the team, maybe not slow them down, but, they've been in the, it seems like the 80s just about every game except the loss to Georgia. So with Providence, there was a question to me back to yesterday. I looked at this with Hopkins. I think it's a plus to have him in. He's been dealing with the knee injury. He came back for a minute. They beat BYU. But this is where they play their best basketball is at home. I went with, it was red hot. St. Bonaventure, that was on a neutral floor on Saturday, and I didn't think they should be favored. The Bonnies are red hot, not even winning, but ATS. So back here at this, I have to take it. I think this is just going to be hostile place. I love to back them here, and it's just too many points. Hey, with 6.5, they can lose here by 6. There's sometimes for this always it's worked for me a ton. Look, it didn't work against Iowa State, Iowa, but I got to take that shot. That game was tied 74-74 last week. It was, I think, maybe a little over a week ago.
You felt like you had the right side. They were covering
exactly. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. They were winning, and you're going to tell me it was tied with about 2:40 left, and they kind of just crumbled. And Iowa State just covered that game. So that rarely happens because when you're getting that many points. So just kind of another situation like that. We'll see. St. John's goes in there, and this Providence team isn't one maybe that's as good as we've seen so far. Like I talked about, Hopkins been out most of these games, but give me him at home. Dunkin' Donuts Center, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still called that, but that's always what it's going to be to me. You're right, Dunkin' Donut Center. The other marquee matchup tonight on Friday, and I know these two matchups are going heads up with the college football playoff game, Indiana Notre Dame. So I don't know how much attention it's going to get, but they're two good games. This is another one, Dayton and Cincinnati, a little in-state rivalry here. Cincinnati 3-point favorites, 137 being the total here in this game. You look at Dayton. I like this Dayton team quite a bit. Now, they're coming off a couple of games where they played back-to-back. Marquette, big home win over the weekend. UNLV, and that was right down to the wire. Dayton survived a very solid effort on the road from the Rebels with a 66-65 win. Cincinnati's coming off the crosstown rivalry game against Xavier, 68-65. Xavier was a best bet for me on the show last week. Talked about it, +8. I thought it was too many points. Xavier covers pretty much wire to wire. They led a good portion of that game, but Cincinnati made plays down the stretch. I don't think Cincinnati is better than Dayton. I think Dayton's the better team. I'm taking my chance here with Dayton +3. I think they're the better team. I think they can go on the road and win in these kind of environments. I know they're coming off a couple of big-time games against Marquette and UNLV, and, will they have enough gas in the tank, I guess, is kind of a question, but I think they're flat out better than Cincinnati. And if you look at Cincinnati, they feasted on a very cupcake-laden schedule early in the season. Now it started to get tougher on them, and you're starting to see them slip just a little bit. They lose as favorites at Villanova. They have the game where they didn't cover against Xavier. That's now 0-4 against the spread now for the Bearcats in their last 4 games. Really like this Dayton team. They faced a grueling schedule, and this goes back to when they were in Maui and they played North Carolina, Iowa State, and UConn. This team is battle-tested. Dayton, and I think that serves them well going on the road tonight against Cincinnati. Malachi Smith, Enoch Cheeks, Javon Bennett, Nate Santos, Ed Key. I love their starting 5. They can shoot the 3. They can score inside. They defend. They protect the rim. They rebound. They're very much a very versatile team. I like Dayton here +3. I'm a little surprised that I could see Cincinnati pick them, Cincinnati in that range, but putting them out there as a full 3-point favorite thought was a little much. It wouldn't shock me if this is a tight game, and I trust Dayton more in a tight game. They've shown the ability to win those kind of games. I like Dayton. I just think they're the better team. I'll take +3 with them in this game. See?
Yeah, I have to take Dayton. I just think they're the better basketball team, and they're getting 3. I know they've had a couple games this week where Cincinnati's been off, since that game on Saturday. But they're not at home here. Like, I think this would be the number with them at home. I know it's not far, but it's not a far travel for Dayton here either. And they played at this spot, a few times at this Heritage Bank Center. So I like exactly Santos, all these guys, Alexander, especially use him better than like he used to get used at St. John's. You know what I mean? Less minutes, keep the turnovers, more of a guy that can come in and out like off the bench. So I like that for this team. And bottom line, Cincy, I think maybe still like slightly the defensive numbers are better, but the schedule isn't. Like you're talking about, Dayton's played a lot better competition. And I thought about staying off this a little bit earlier today, but just a little while ago, I got to take this. What am I talking about? They're the better team, like you just said, and I'll grab the 3, because I think the game will be close, and you can have that in your back pocket. Would be great. I was open because I missed the 3.5. I waited. We saw a lot of 2.5. But there's 3s a lot of places now. It's basically split because I'd love to grab a 3.5 just to be safe. But I think Dayton can win it outright.
All right. We have no lines for Saturday's games yet from the looks of things. So I've listed just the matchups of the games we're going to talk from Saturday. Syracuse and Maryland is the first game, but I do have projected point spreads courtesy of barttorvik.com, which is my go-to website, go-to stats website for college basketball. It's a must using Bart Torvik. It is a terrific website. They've got Syracuse and Maryland here, with Maryland projected to be an 11-point home favorite in this game against Syracuse. The total 158 is what's expected here in this game. This is based on Bart Torvik's projections, not the actual lines because they have not been posted yet. Bottom line is Maryland at home and Syracuse, a lot of ups and downs they have had so far this year. I still think they're trying to find themselves, really, Syracuse. They've had some decent showings where they've, stepped up and been competitive. And then, I didn't love the way they played against Georgetown last Saturday at home. Certainly didn't love what I saw from them at the defensive end of the basketball court either. 5-5 is a perfect representation of, what Syracuse has been so far this season. Now, can they step up in class going on the road? That's a question. We only have the one piece of data, which was at Tennessee, one of the best teams in the country, and they lose by 26 in that game. So it doesn't exactly give you a ton of faith that they can get the job done here on the road against a Maryland team that we know on this home court can be very tough, as we know. And we know, obviously, they played here at the Xfinity Center already once in Big Ten play, and they routed Ohio State on this floor 83-59. We'll see where this number comes out, but I have a difficult time trusting Syracuse on the road and Maryland 8-1 at home. I don't know if I'd want to buck that trend, because the only piece of evidence we've seen for Syracuse in a true road game was that 26-point loss to Tennessee. So it doesn't give you a boatload of trust right now, at least for me, to back Syracuse. We'll see where this total is, but Maryland's been kind of an over machine. They've been scoring a ton of points at home against everybody they've played. They've put up a big number, and Syracuse is going to play with some pace. They're a top 50 team in tempo. As long as this total is not crazy high, like in the 160s, if it's like in the I'm hoping even in the mid 150s, might get over the total here. C-Mac, your thoughts here, Syracuse, Maryland.
Man, I don't really like the Syracuse team.
No.
But I don't know if this is enough points. Maryland's always the team I want to take here at home, where they've been better. They even shoot it better consistently over the years. And then in games where they don't, they grind out wins at home. Why they've been so consistent there and good. The offense has been great. Now, the schedule, the Ohio State win, but Ohio State, I don't think is very good. And we know how bad they can play on the road. But the offense has been pretty good, and they've been good at home. Maybe this game gets over. See where this total is. And one thing with Marin, I think it's going to be around 10, right? That I've kind of listed 10 or 11. Yeah, I'd let you lean that way. I don't know what to make of Syracuse. It seems like if their three balls and dropping, it'll be a tough day for them.
I would agree with that. All right, UConn and Butler, a couple of Big East games actually next up. UConn, Butler, again, projected point spread in this game, courtesy again of Bart Torvik, since we don't have the actual lines up yet. We've got UConn, a 3.5-point road favorite at Hinkle, and the total at 145 in this game. I'm telling you what, UConn, they're the better team. I don't trust Butler enough. That being said, UConn on the road's been a little bit up and down. They've been a little bit better away from home of late. I thought it was a great spot to fade UConn, getting 14 points with Xavier earlier this week, and Xavier ended up taking that game right down to the wire. But now we got UConn projected to be just a small road favorite, 3.5. I could see them winning and covering this game. I just think they're a better basketball team. Butler's had way too many lapses, way too many games where they've gone into scoring droughts, way too many games where defensively things come unglued for them. There's just no reliability game to game with Butler for me to trust them, especially if they're only going to get 3.5 in this game. So I lean UConn. I doubt I bet the game, though. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I probably don't get involved, especially if it's that short. I'll be more tempted if this is 6 or 7. The loss was on a neutral in Wisconsin and then at Marquette by 10. But they've been in these games, and I want to back them at home, this Butler team. I think there's still, some stuff they have to go through, but I've kind of been impressed with it. That's crazy to say. Team that's lost 4 straight. The bad loss was North Dakota State. The last 2 games, like I talked about, weren't at home. Or Wisconsin was, right? Marquette was but that was on a neutral. Sorry, and then at Marquette. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, they're back here at home. I think they get their best effort. UConn finally started to get rolling. I thought we'd get them at cheap prices. We didn't, except the Xavier game. But the offense was still good. It looks like Samson Johnson's back. I saw that earlier today on here. He didn't play last game. Not but a role player for him. I can talk about this 7 or 8. I'm going to be on Butler. But if it's short, I don't know if I can get there. If I trust this team, especially the defensive end, when these last 3 or 4, Havana, that's been their problem. The breakdown defensively has just been awful.
All right, and here's another good one in the Big East on Saturday afternoon. Marquette and Xavier. Projected point spread. Marquette 3.5-point road favorites at Cintas Center, home of Xavier, of course, and the total is expected to be 152.5 in this game. I'm riding the Xavier team. X marks the spot for this guy. I've been on Xavier a couple of times now, and both times they lost, but they covered at Cincinnati, and then a heartbreaker for them against UConn. That game went to overtime, and UConn ended up getting the victory there. But Xavier is starting to look like I expected this team to be one of the better teams in the Big East, and they kind of had some disappointing efforts early in the year. This is a very talented group with Davion McKnight, Ryan Conwell, Marcus Foster. Wait till they get Zach Fremantle. I know he was in absence due to injury against UConn, but he's been around the block, gives them some low post force. I think definitely when you look at this Xavier team, they're talented and they kind of underachieved early, but they're starting to round into form, and they're on the precipice of finally winning. You know, they took Cincy down to the wire. They had UConn on the ropes there with the lead in the second half, and UConn battles back. Credit to them, heart of a champion, to force overtime. Meanwhile, Marquette, I like Marquette as a team, talent-wise. I'm impressed with the job Jacques has done. You know, you lost to Tyler Kolek and Isaac Ighodaro last year. Last year from that team, and you've managed to play some pretty good basketball, but they've had one major flaw: the road performances, especially the last two games where we saw them lose at Iowa State and we saw them lose at Dayton last weekend. So 0-2 straight up, 0-2 against the spread for the Golden Eagles in their last two road games. It's not going to get any easier against a Xavier team that's starting to play some better basketball. So as a home dog, I like Xavier here. If we're going to get plus 3.5 with them, and that's the current projected point spread, for me, it's Xavier in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, when does it catch up? That's why I stayed off with no Fremantle in that game we just talked about versus UConn, even though I thought it was a ton of points. But if you would have told me he's out, but they shoot 54% from three, I would have said, yeah, I would have been on those points. I mean, they were lighting it up. Yeah. Conwell, all these guys. I mean, Foster's, I think 3 for 5, 3 for 6. Maddox, I think he was 5 of 8 or 5 of 9. They were shooting the ball. Wow, that's always tough when you lose a game like that. And I didn't know how much their defense. I thought their effort on the defensive side to start the year has been better. I think sometimes last year when they would just get into shootouts, you know what I mean, and they would kind of fall apart. But man, that shooting performance, I think if they shoot a little, just decent here, I think they can get the job done. Marquette's kind of had their number. I think they've beat him the last 4 or 5 times. Let me double check this year. Beat him both times last year.
Yeah, it's been good for Marquette. Yep.
Yeah, a couple tight games though.
4 straight wins. Yep.
6-point game here at Xavier last year, 86-80.
Yep.
So I'll see. But I'm definitely leaning their way at home if you get maybe a 4.5, or that's the number.
All right, Florida Atlantic and Michigan State. Next up, a little non-conference action here on Saturday afternoon. Projected point spread has Michigan State at home, 12.5-point favorites, 158.5 the total in this game. I'm just going to keep this simple. Rather than backing a side in this game, I'd actually lean Florida Atlantic. Michigan State, we saw it against Oakland. You know, it's not a team that I always trust covering. Now, they did cover that game, but it took a while. It wasn't looking good early, but they did pull away late. I'm more interested in the over. Florida Atlantic's been an over machine, and I know I've been on a bunch of these Florida Atlantic games over the total. And don't look now, all of a sudden we're seeing Sparty of late under Tom Izzo, not just playing a little bit faster, but really ramping things up offensively. I mean, they laid a number on Nebraska, 89 points in that victory, 90 against Minnesota. This is a team really shooting well. Florida's going to push the pace. I like what I'm seeing from Jaden Akins, Jackson Kohler. They're getting nice contributions from multiple sources, shooting a high percentage, and they've been blistering the basket now for multiple games in a row. So as long as this total isn't outrageously high, I've certainly got this game circled to be an over. C-Mac, any thought here? FAU Sparty.
No, I don't have anything here. It will go over. If FAU can't stop anyone, it for sure it will. I think Michigan State, you could look at their team total in this game, and Michigan State's been scoring as well. Oakland's pretty bad. I mean, we saw that last night with them. I wish I was on Cleveland State. That was one of the games that I didn't get on. But the beatdown in Nebraska, they've been off only 3 days, though. I thought it was longer than that here. I kind of like Michigan State. It's just when you start laying doubles with it, even at home, it's something I want to not be involved with. So, pass.
Louisville, Florida State. Next up, projected point spread in this game as Florida State 2.5-point favorites, 152.5 being the total here in this game. Florida State, you look at their games, their losses, Florida, NC State, and LSU by far. Like, those are the only 3 good teams they've played, Florida State, and those were the 3 losses. Meanwhile, Louisville, I know 6-5. You know I'm a big Pat Kelsey fan. I think he's done a nice job everywhere he's been. Winthrop, Charleston, and now here he is with Louisville. And look, I thought they were pretty competitive on the road at Kentucky last week in the rivalry game. I thought the Duke game, they were competitive. They kind of fell apart late, but they gave Duke a battle. They were leading big early in that game against Duke, but their offense kind of grinded to a halt. Duke's defense turned it up. And you talk about battle tested, doesn't get much more battle tested, Connor Mack, than Louisville. You played Tennessee, Indiana, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Duke, and Kentucky already this season. Does it get much tougher than that as far as non-conference is concerned? I don't think Florida State and this Tallahassee Don Haskins Center is going to scare them. I think they're a live dog. And if they're 3.5-point underdogs as they're projected right now, I'm very interested in Louisville in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think maybe they could be. This is going to be a short number, I think. I'm just not impressed with Florida State at all. I know they go on the road, but they lose to 2 teams not really high on that are average in LSU and NC State. One thing, depending on the number on the total, I lean under just because Florida State's gone a little bit under. Louisville has. Maybe, and the number's just been a little bit too high, I think. If these are lower, I think you can look at it. But if Louisville does have success, and they're coming off, last week against Kentucky, even though they snuck in, got the cover, and of course you lean on Chucky Hepburn. He's got to be big. When he's played big, they've played well at least. Been in the game, won it, or like last week covered. I think he had 26, and he shot it well from 3. I think he had 4 threes in that game. So he's got to play well. And for all the tight games and losses they had early and a few of the injuries, I think it's actually a kind of a gettable game. I just don't know what to make of Florida State, really. And how much is it going to matter being at home here? I'm not so. I don't know.
All right, Wake Forest.
I'm not impressed.
No, I agree. I got to see more from Florida State. Every game against, and by the way, I look at Louisville as tough competition too. And the other games against, decent competition, they didn't get the job done. Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Wake Forest and Clemson. Next up here, projected point spread has Clemson 10.5-point favorites at Little John Coliseum, 136.5 the total. So this is back-to-back losses now for Clemson against Memphis at home in overtime last Saturday. And then, of course, a tough one against South Carolina, 91-88, and defense struggled both times. But now you're back home off back-to-back losses. It feels like this could be a smackdown spot for Clemson. It does. Because Wake, if you look at them, I know they beat James Madison their last game, but you start to look 0-2 on the road. They got blown out by A&M.
Can't score.
Can't score against the good defenses, the good teams. 44 points, 57-44. Blown out by Xavier, 75-60 at Cintas Center. Double-digit losses. I think it's lay it or don't play it with Clemson. If it's 10-10.5, I might lay it because I could see this being another 13, 15, 16, 18-point loss for Wake Forest. They cannot score on the road against pretty good teams, pretty good defenses, and Clemson's probably not taking them lightly, you would assume, following consecutive losses to Memphis and South Carolina. You should have full focus from the Clemson Tigers here on this matchup. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think it's a classic spot. Unless Wake shoots it well, I think you look Clemson first half. The 2 straight losses, like you mentioned, the tight game. I know I went with South Carolina, and that game was great because people thought they would get a little down South Carolina, but it was a really, really good game. And then the tough one last Saturday that we talked about with Memphis. Clemson here at home will play better. They shoot it well. And I've watched this Wake team. Like, they're slower. They're not as good defensively. And then to see them go on these droughts and not score, I'm like, holy shit. Usually between these two, too, this is usually pretty good games. There have been some blowouts, but I think you look at Clemson kind of, and I would look early in this game, first half.
All right, first half. All right, UCLA, North Carolina. Note this game is at Madison Square Garden, neutral floor in New York City tomorrow afternoon with UCLA and taking on North Carolina. We've got projected point spread. UCLA, 1.5 point favorites here. 152.5 the total in this game. If UCLA was a dog here, I'd be definitely on them. They're a favorite now. North Carolina, I think, has got a little bit maybe of a talent edge here over UCLA. They're coming off the 90-84 loss as well. Hard-fought game against the Florida Gators, who have been outstanding. Meanwhile, you look at UCLA, they've already beaten Arizona and Oregon, two of the better teams in the Pac-12. Tough game. I would have liked UCLA more if they were in the underdog role here, but I don't want to go against them. Even though they're favored, they're only favored by 1.5. They win the game, they probably are going to cover. I really love the way they're playing defense, especially in these bigger games that they have played this season. It's a big travel spot. You're going all the way to New York City. I get that. But
yeah,
I think at this price range with the way they're playing defense, Mick Cronin's team, I'm leaning a little bit to the UCLA side. C-Mac, what do you think?
How can you not? I mean, these are the classic trip up shots they think. Like, we did it. At least I know. I think Arizona has got problems. But that was everyone like, they're going to rally here, Arizona, and beat UCLA. But UCLA has the better defense, flat out, and they do in this matchup. But this seems like...
I think Mick's a little bit better from a coaching standpoint than our guy, Hubert Davis. That's me. That's just me.
Yeah. I think you're right. I agree. In North Carolina... played all right. They just give up too many points. This team isn't good defensively at all. Of course, they rely on Davis. It just seems like the tricky spot, but I think UCLA could still go in there and win. Even though it might not be easy, and that's all they have to do. So I lean that way a little bit. Yeah, this is one maybe I don't bet, but I'd look at that. Bruins playing good basketball right now.
All right, I agree. They certainly are. There's no doubt. All right, we got 3 games left that we'll talk about for Saturday. This one, Villanova and Creighton. Big East is the star of the day Saturday. All the best matchups are Big East games tomorrow. This is another one. Villanova,
shout out to the Big East.
Big East getting it. I mean, look at UConn, Butler, Marquette, Xavier in this game. They're all good games. We've got projected point spread here of Creighton laying, it looks like 5.5 here in this game, 144.5 the total. This kind of feels to me, this Villanova-Creighton game. And look, I think Villanova's not that good. And they've started to make me pay the price a little bit for betting against them because I bet against them a lot early in the year, and it was making money. Not so much lately. They are actually 6-1 against the spread their last 7 games, Villanova. They beat up Temple. They won and covered against Cincy. I took Seton Hall. And very impressive defensive showing, and they win 79-67. And really the difference is Eric Dixon. This guy is really playing some unbelievable basketball for Villanova. I don't want to say a one-man team they are, but when he is rolling, it just takes this Villanova team to another level, and that's been the success they've had. But now you've got this Creighton team that was really starting to play good ball with those big wins against Notre Dame and Kansas, huge win against the Jayhawks at home. Beat down UNLV. They went on the road. They got their teeth kicked in. Alabama beat them. Georgetown absolutely whipped them, 81-57 the other night. Get well spot time, in my opinion, here for Creighton. Back home, 2 losses in a row on the road. Villanova, to me, is still not all they're cracked up to be, as far as I'm concerned, and they're walking into a building where I think Creighton's going to be in a bad mood and want to take out some frustrations. And I think Creighton's still the better team. I'll lay the 5.5 with Creighton. If it's anything close to that 5-6 range with Creighton as a home favorite, I'll be on them and laying the points for sure. C-Mac, what do you think?
This is probably the spot. I got to look at this one more. I don't think Georgetown's that good. The thing with Creighton and why I liked it, they consistently beat Georgetown, and I liked how they were playing, even though the wins at home with Kansas, UNLV easily take care of business. And they cover that game against Alabama. That was too many. I mean, they were catching, I think, 12 or 13, right around there, 12 in that game. It was close enough at Alabama. And I just Georgetown shot just the lights out. I think they shot 60% from three, 54% for the game, something like that. I mean, they couldn't miss. And it's just this up and down yo-yo with Creighton. So I guess it's a turnaround for them back here at home to take care of it. But I got my ass kicked. Because the Classic in the last few years with that short number. But maybe I got to look at Georgetown more. Maybe they're a little bit better than I expected. I didn't think so because I had seen them early on in some of these games. And they were very good. I saw them lose at home, I think, to Notre Dame by over 20. So, yeah, maybe a get-right spot for Creighton. But I got kicked in the nuts with them earlier this week.
Yeah, I'm taking them. To me, this has got to be it. This has got to be the spot.
It's got to be it. They've been money at home. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a short number on the road. It's a Classic, maybe trap spot, but they had kind of beat them down consistently for years, you know? And look where it gets me. Guy wants to tell me to lay points. Fucking get out of here. And that's what happened. You lay points on the road.
Yeah, it's not always easy to do, especially this days in age college basketball, where parity reigns supreme, really in both sports, college basketball and football. Purdue and Auburn. This should be an interesting game here, Purdue and Auburn. This is at Legacy Arena, so this is a neutral court game as well. We've got Auburn 9.5-point favorites, projected to be close to double-digit favorites, 149.5 the total in this game. You know, at some point, Auburn's going to be, a little bit overvalued, but still, their only non-point spread covers were Iowa State, a 2-point win in Maui, and the loss to Duke on the road. Other than that, they've been a point spread machine, 10-1 straight up, 9-2 against the spread. They destroyed Ohio State, 91-53 just recently. Purdue's not chopped liver, obviously. We'll see how they fare here. They had the loss at Penn State by 11. They had the loss at Marquette, 76-58. But again, all there, and that was at Fiserv Forum. So they played Marquette. They lost by 18 on a neutral, although it was closer to Marquette, their campus. You look at this spot here, Legacy Arena here in Birmingham, Alabama. This is definitely going to be closer to Auburn, and you're going to expect a lot of Auburn faithful in attendance. I just think it's too tough to step in front of Auburn. It's a lot of points. I'm not saying I'm going to lay it with Auburn because Purdue's a solid team, but I have not seen enough in some of these road efforts or neutral efforts from Purdue. They got blasted at Penn State. They got blasted by Marquette in Wisconsin on a neutral floor, and this is kind of like a semi-home game for Auburn like it was for Marquette when Purdue played them. And I laid it with Auburn against Ohio State just recently, and they laid a whipping on them. Yeah. And you want to go against Johnny Broome and and this great team that can score inside, shoot the three, defend, rebound. Like, they do it all, this Auburn team. They're so well-rounded, multifaceted. I can't step in front of them. Doesn't mean I'm laying it, but I'd be scared to take Purdue in this game and in this matchup, especially with these road issues they've had. C-Mac, what do you think?
I think the numbers right there. I don't really want to step in front of Auburn, and this Purdue team, I think, is pretty good. It's just on a neutral floor. It's tempting. Maybe this is over 11, but I think it's just an Auburn win when it comes down to it. This is probably a game I just don't get involved with.
All right, Ohio State and Kentucky. This is the second game at Madison Square Garden on Saturday. This follows the UCLA North Carolina game. Projected point spread here has Kentucky, 7.5-point favorite, 160.5 the total in this game. You look at the Ohio State Buckeyes. They had a good win against Rutgers, but they lose to Pitt. They get blown out to Maryland, blown out by A&M. You start to look more and more, and their ability to step up against the best of the best has not been great. Meanwhile, you've got Kentucky here coming in off a nice victory against Louisville. Their only loss this season was at Clemson, a very hard-fought game, 70-66. 7.5 being the number here in this game. I think you could lay it with Kentucky. I don't trust Ohio State enough, and I like Mark Pope. I thought they made a nice hire. Mark Pope's going to do a nice job here. It's actually an upgrade, in my opinion, from Calipari, if we're being quite honest. I trust him more in a big tournament game than I do John Calipari with what we've seen over the years. And I like what we're seeing from them as far as, their offense is capable. Defensively, they've made some strides because there just wasn't good enough at that end of the floor at times under Calipari. But you look at Lamont Butler, Jackson Robinson, Andrew Carr, Otega, Owe. There's definitely that balance in terms of perimeter game, inside game. Lots to like with Kentucky from a talent standpoint. Talent might win out here. I would certainly look to lay it or don't play it. C-Mac, what do you think?
Ohio State, anywhere. It's not a road game. No way. You know what I mean? Like double digits is where this needs to be, even on a neutral. You know what I mean? One thing with Kentucky where it's kind of slipped and why teams have covered or even backdoored, like Louisville, is I still just don't think they're there right quite now defensively. We know they have the guard play. This team's very, very good at score. So, yeah, if like 7 or less around there, Kentucky play it. I think they win here. I have no trust other than Thornton on this Ohio State team, especially on the road or on a neutral.
All right, we will wrap up. Well, it's our final game of our game-by-game breakdowns for this show. California, we got to give you a little West Coast action. This is late night on Saturday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. San Jose, the SAP Center, home of the San Jose Sharks. That is where this game will be on a neutral floor. California and San Diego State. Projected point spread has the Aztecs right now 8.5-point favorites, 146.5 being the total in this game. When you look at this Cal Golden Bears team, it's certainly a group that is making strides. There's no question. They're going to push pace. That's another thing they do. They're a pretty efficient offensive team. They do lack a little bit defensively, and there's a big defensive gap between these two teams just based in terms of defensive efficiency. Cal's 233rd defensive efficiency in the country. San Diego State 31st. That's not a surprise. Steve Fisher and now Brian Dutcher. It doesn't matter who both of them since they've been coaching this Aztecs team. They're always a good defensive team. You know that. But San Diego State laying the bigger numbers lately hasn't been quite as reliable here as far as point spread success is concerned. They've become kind of a team where, catching points with them, competitively lined games, that's where you like to be able to back a team like San Diego State. But when they've been laying the bigger numbers, hasn't always been the easiest proposal, if you will, to lay the big numbers with them. And it is worth noting, last year, San Diego State and Cal played, and it was at J. Sarah Pavilion. I believe it was a neutral court, too. 76-67, an overtime victory for the Aztecs in that game. And keep in mind, Cal was not quite as good as they are this year. Cal, to me, it's kind of interesting that I kind of want to play Cal over, yet I think you can play San Diego State maybe over right now because they've had a couple front court injuries. It's kind of taken away from them defensively. And then you start to look at their schedule, and you look at the Cal Baptist game, a team that will push pace. They were willing to kind of run with them. You're going to get that from Cal. Cal's gone over in 4 straight games. There's still some issues with getting stops for Cal. This total being in the it looks like it's going to be in the 146.5 range. I think you could get this game over the total, honestly, with what we're seeing from both of these teams from a total standpoint in recent games. And then as far as the point spread's concerned, you start to look at Cal. Now, I am concerned about their defensive issues, and they have had some ugly games. Cornell, Stanford, giving up 88 and 89 and losing those 2 games as favorites are a concern. There's no question. They were also good enough to win outright as a dog against USC. They've had some games where they've been competitive in this dog role. We'll see if that continues here. I lean a little bit to the Golden Bears, but my concern is their defensive problems that we've seen the last couple games. And for that reason, Connor, I prefer the over than Cal in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Well, it needs to be there. If it's 145, well, I'll take the over. They can't stop anybody.
No.
Can Cal. I know it's on the neutral, so it's always a little bit different, but I think they'll be able to score. And the San Diego State team's good, but they're still, I think, trying to figure out a little bit. And the scoring's been there a little bit more. It just has, especially the last month. Numbers in the 130s or low 140s have basically gotten over. I know they beat San Diego. That stayed under, but with a team like that, they're not going to score, 57 points. But anyone else, it's kind of got there. So I look at that over in this game.
There we go. There we go. That's all the bigger game previews, I guess you could say, for Saturday. And we also talked about the two marquee games taking place here on this Friday night. So shout out to everyone joining us. We appreciate it. 64 people watching live. Hit the like button. Trans Canada, Justin McKelvey, Joseph Joe, Timothy Hake, Rick J. Appreciate you guys joining us in the chat. All right, Connor Mack, is there any games from either tonight or tomorrow that we have not talked about that you like and are thinking of betting? Let us know.
No, that's it. I gave the only other one is I have to move on Dayton here. That's today. So I'm on that game. But other than that, no. I wanted to move on.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on Ryder. Man, never got a 5.5, and now they're 4s.
Yeah.
I just those teams. There's nothing that separates them. I get 10s at home.
That might be worse. Like Penn is.
They might be worse. I mean, yes, the numbers are the same. Like they're at home. I think it just should be a flat 3, 2.5, 3. So that's why I saw that little bit of value. Then it moved, and I thought it might move a little bit more. So that was that. Fuck. I still think they could cover. But they are bad. These are two bad teams defensively and offensively. They've been putrid.
I think with bad teams meet up, though, if they're bad on both ends of the floor, often than not, the offense will win out. So at 135,
sometimes, yeah,
I don't mind looking it over in that game either with Ryder and Penn. You're right. That's the only game I was going to mention. I lean Ryder. I lean over against Penn. I lean Delaware against St. Peter's, but Delaware's kind of frustrated me. I remember taking them against Duquesne, and they just shit the bed in the second half of that game against Duquesne. And I like the way St. Peter's plays defense. And defense alone might be enough for them to get a win there. And I'm not getting enough points with Delaware, so I stayed off that. I don't mind Providence, as Connor Mack said. I'm on Dayton. That is probably, well, I'm going to give it away here, kind of. But best bet, as we'll transition right into best bet. Connor, I'll start with you. What do you like here for a best bet?
Well, I know you like Dayton, and me too. Man, I wish I could find a 3.5. Man, God damn, every point matters though. It's just
it does. But I think they win the game, so I'm okay at 3.
I think they do too. Well, that's what I kept going back to. I was like, I have to take this because I was kind of going to stay off, but just on the neutral, I think they're the better team. And Cincy needs to get wins and blah blah blah, but everything that I've shown, they're just flat out better. But I took this earlier. I got 6.5. There's just 5.5s. I think that's enough. Providence at home, the Dunkin' Donut Center. I think they can win outright, but at least they cover here at home. They lose a tight one, maybe. All right, take the Friars.
All right, Providence Friars plus 5.5 against St. John's in Big East action for
6.5. I got, but 5.5 for everyone out here.
Yeah, that was a good number. 6.5. They're getting that with Providence earlier today. Yeah, my best bet is +3 with Dayton. Dayton Flyers +3. I think wrong team favored. The only concern I have is Dayton played a down to the wire game with UNLV, and then of course they had the game against Marquette. 2 big games. Hopefully they don't run out of gas tonight. Maybe hit a wall. But I just think they're better, and you're getting a good number and a good price with I think a better basketball team. And Cincinnati has faced a bunch of weak teams, and when they've stepped up in class, they lose to Villanova. They barely escape Xavier. And barely escape means Dayton could cover still and lose by 1 or 2. So, yeah, I'll take Dayton here. +3 against Cincinnati for my best bet here for this edition of the College Basketball Hitting the Books show. Shout out to everyone joining us. We are back on Monday. We are back Monday. This Monday we are on 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific with the College Football Hitting the Books show. For this show coming up, we will have quarterfinals of the playoffs, and we will have the bowl games from January 2nd to January 4th. All the remaining bowl, it'll be a short show, probably 1 hour at most, Monday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Join us for that. And, of course, we'll be back with the college basketball edition of the show next Friday at the same time, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. C-Mac, final thoughts before we say goodbye.
No. See you Monday.
Yep.
Let's get out of here.
Let's go. Great stuff. Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night and a great weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck. Enjoy the college football playoff games and check out the channel. All the previews are up there. for the college football playoff games and all the bowl games through up until the end of the new year. End of the year, December 31st. We've done every bowl game right through New Year's Eve, and all 4 first-round games. We'll post the links on Twitter X for all the playoff previews as well, so that you can check those out if you haven't done so already. So for Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you Monday for the college football edition of Hitting the Books. Until then, class